Patrick Cook here. Well, thanks for returning to the next session of our Mandelbulb 3D Tutorial Series. Now, in the last session, I was mentioning that I really don't care for this glistening effect in here, and I thought we could take a session, maybe two, maybe three, whatever it takes, and see if we can address this. And this is kind of an advanced topic, okay? Because a couple things. First of all, we need to find that frame so that we can see whether or not we're having an impact. This discussion does entail the topics of the DE stop and the ray step multiplier and that kind of stuff that we had talked about way back in earlier sessions, and then we need to actually apply it to our keyframes. All right, so we're a little bit more, a little advanced here, but that's all right. You know, let's give it a shot, shall we? All right. Now here's how I would go about addressing this. First of all, I have a frame. Thanks to DJV. I could probably do this with the built-in previewer too. All right, but I have the luxury of being able to kind of zero in on this. All right, so I'm going to take this frame right here. Now that is frame 2314. I'm just going to write that down. And the issue, okay, I'll tell you what, okay, 2301. I'm going to take 2301, and you'll find out here why in a few minutes. 2301. I need to find subframe 2301 out of all of these keyframes here, and ideally bring it into my main where I can start working with the quality, and to see whether or not I can eliminate or soften this what shall we call it? It's almost like a breakdown of the fractal, which obviously turns into a glistening effect in my animation. Okay, so I want to see if I can deal with that. All right, so 2301. I'm going to leave DJV. I don't need my notes for the moment, so let's just focus on what we've got here. Now, I need to find subframe 2301. 2301. Okay, 2301 is somewhere between keyframes 9, which is 1700, and keyframes 10, which is 625. All right, so 2325 is about as close as I can get to 2301. But it might be enough. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pull that down into main. All right, look at that. Now I'm going to re-render it. Let's get my view here, where hopefully I can find it in here. Nope, I missed it. Let's see. There's no indication here as to which frame number I have loaded down into main. All right. I think it is 2325, but there's no indication down here which actual frame I have loaded. So I'm a little handicapped in that area, but this is obviously not the frame that we're looking for. You see? That's not the frame we're looking for. 2334. Okay. All right, well, I'll tell you what. Let's go to the next keyframe. All right, and let's pull that into main. Okay, and see if we can look around and find it. Just not finding it, but I'll tell you what, I am finding this right in here. And that seems to be all hashed out too. So I'll tell you what, since we can't seem to land on frame 2301, which we have clearly seen as the issue, and this just points out that it's very difficult to actually find your way back to a specific frame, because these subframes don't exist yet until they're rendered. All right, so just pulling down the keyframe is very limited on the actual subframes that I can pull down into main. All right, I can't pull subframes down into main because they don't exist yet. All right, so, but I'll tell you what, we do have a bunch of hashing right in here, and we got it right up in here. So this is, I'm going to see if I can deal with this problem right here with what I'm working at here. Now I've got a 1-to-1 here. Yeah, it's 1-to-1. Yeah, there's some more hashing up in here and over in here. Let's see if we can deal with this. All right, so I'm going to go to my calculation tab, and I see that I have a DE stop of 1.6. Now I'm going to write that down, 1.6, and I have a ray stop multiplier of 0.5. I'm going to write that down too, and I have a step width limiter of 1, and I probably don't need to modify these. All right, typically the DE stop and the ray step multiplier are the two properties that will have the greatest impact on the quality of your image. These also take a role, but they're not as pronounced. So I've written my notes down here because if it doesn't work for me, I need to go back. Now you'll notice here that we have very DE stop on FOV. All right. And that's checked on, and I do want to keep that checked on because as we're moving through the scene here, I don't mind if the DE stop is slightly modified as it goes. I'm kind of trusting the Mandelbulb3D software, so I don't want to modify that. But what I do want to do is I want to test to see whether or not a different DE stop, a lower DE stop, would improve my situation over here. So let's just do this. Let's put a 1 in there. Let's put a 1 in the DE stop, and let's calculate it. Now, did that improve my situation any? No, not really. Not really, right? We still have a lot of lost detail up in here. All right, so let's do crazy. All right, let's do a DE stop of 0.5. Calculate. That didn't help me either. Now, you remember what a DE stop is, right? All right. All right. All right. In the ray tracing algorithm, the DE stop is basically, DE stands for distance estimate, distance estimate. And what it's saying is stop a little bit short, all right, in the case of what we have now, 0.5, stop a half a pixel width sooner than before you get to the actual object so that we don't risk overshooting it or oversampling it. All right, we're out of time on this session. Let's pick this up in the next session. I'll see you there.